Have you ever wondered why your expensive compost takes forever to work, while weeds grow perfectly in the cracks of the sidewalk? Today we are diving into a mind-blowing secret from the 1800s that completely changes the rules of gardening. We are going to explore a forgotten technique that dramatically outshines traditional compost. I promise you will never look at your garden dirt the same way again. Here is the craziest part. This method was so powerful and so cheap that it was literally banned and wiped from history by wealthy industrialists. They did not want you to know that you could grow giant crops without spending a single dime on their products. Do you believe that big corporations actively suppress natural solutions to protect their profits? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, because this story will definitely make you angry. To truly understand this forbidden trick, we have to travel back to the late 19th century. The world was changing rapidly. The Industrial Revolution was at its peak, and populations were booming. Farmers were under immense pressure to produce more food than ever before. During this time, two completely different paths emerged in the world of agriculture. On one side, brilliant inventors and nature lovers were experimenting with natural forces. They were studying how lightning, magnetism, and invisible atmospheric energy affected plant growth. This beautiful, harmonious approach was known as electroculture. On the exact opposite side, massive chemical factories were being built. These factories were looking for ways to sell their synthetic chemical powders to farmers. A massive battle was brewing between free, natural energy and expensive, patented chemicals. The stakes were incredibly high. Whoever won this war would control the future of the global food supply. Unfortunately for humanity, the side with the most money used their power to crush the natural approach entirely. Let us talk about the big lie sitting in your backyard right now. Yes, I am talking about your compost pile. For decades, we have been told that traditional composting is the ultimate secret to a thriving garden. We diligently collect our kitchen scraps, rake up dead leaves, and turn that heavy pile week after week. But what if I told you that this method is incredibly slow and highly inefficient? Think about a typical compost bin. You wait 6 long months, or even a full year, just to get a few handfuls of decent soil. Meanwhile, heavy rains wash away the most valuable liquid nutrients right out of the bottom of your pile. You are basically doing backbreaking labor for a tiny return. This is where our story takes a massive turn. In the late 1800s, farmers were not wasting their time waiting for vegetable peels to rot. They used a completely different method that forced plants to grow at unbelievable speeds. This method was so powerful that it made traditional compost look like a joke. But here's the crazy part. This highly effective technique was systematically erased from our history books. Why would anyone hide a method that works better than the finest organic matter? Because you cannot put a price tag on it. The truth is, standard composting is great, but it is just the tip of the iceberg. There is a much deeper, older secret that forces explosive plant growth without the endless waiting. So, what exactly is this forgotten method from the 1800s? It all started with a fascinating discovery involving early telegraph wires and natural weather patterns. European farmers and scientists in the late 19th century began noticing something very strange. Plants growing directly under newly installed electrical telegraph lines were growing much larger than the rest of the crops. They were producing massive vegetables and resisting diseases completely naturally. This led brilliant minds to experiment with what we now call electroculture. Do not let the fancy name fool you. It simply means using atmospheric energy to stimulate plant growth. Imagine a farmer walking through his field after a heavy thunderstorm. He notices that the crops look incredibly green and vibrant, almost like they are glowing. That is because lightning literally pulls nitrogen from the air and charges the soil. These 1800s pioneers figured out how to recreate that thunderstorm effect every single day without a drop of rain. They realized they did not need tons of heavy animal manure or rotting compost to get record-breaking yields. They just needed to harvest the invisible energy already floating in the air. This discovery was revolutionary. It proved that plants feed on natural, energetic frequencies just as much as they feed on physical soil nutrients. And the best part was that the materials needed were dirt cheap and lasted forever. Now let us break down how this incredible trick actually works in plain English. You do not need a degree in electrical engineering to understand this. Our atmosphere is constantly buzzing with natural energy, electricity, and magnetic forces. The Earth itself is a giant magnet. The secret 1800s technique simply acts as an antenna to catch this free energy and pull it deep into the dirt. Think of it like a giant funnel for invisible plant food. If you take a simple piece of copper wire and wrap it around a wooden stick, you create a powerful atmospheric receiver. When you place this copper-wrapped stick into the soil next to your plants, something magical happens. The copper captures the subtle electrical currents from the wind, the sun, and the rain. It channels that energy directly down into the root zone of your vegetables. Imagine an invisible river of electricity flowing straight into your garden beds 24 hours a day. This constant microcurrent gently stimulates the plant cells. It makes them open up and absorb water and minerals much faster than normal. Traditional compost just sits there waiting for roots to find it. But this copper antenna system actively pushes energy into the plant. It is like giving your garden a permanent, completely natural energy drink. The roots grow deeper, the stems grow thicker, and the fruits become incredibly dense and sweet. If this method is so incredible, you are probably wondering why it was forbidden. The answer always comes down to money and power. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, a massive shift was happening in the agricultural world. Giant chemical companies were just beginning to manufacture artificial fertilizers. These wealthy industrialists wanted every farmer on the planet to buy their chemical powders and liquids. But there was a huge problem standing in their way. The copper wire technique was completely free to operate once you set it up. A farmer could buy a roll of wire once, install it in his fields, and enjoy massive harvests for decades. You cannot build a billion-dollar business if your customers never need to buy anything from you again. The chemical fertilizer barons realized that this natural atmospheric farming was a massive threat to their profits. They knew they had to eliminate this competition immediately. So, these powerful corporations began using their massive wealth to influence agricultural schools and universities. They funded massive advertising campaigns to convince farmers that chemical powders were the only modern way to grow food. They painted the natural copper methods as outdated, silly, or just plain witchcraft. The greedy businessmen literally bought out the scientific narrative. They made sure that any method that could not be bottled and sold repeatedly was strictly forbidden in mainstream farming. The suppression of this incredible trick was brutal and highly effective. We often think of history as a steady march toward better science, but that is a dangerous myth. Sometimes, amazing discoveries are intentionally buried. During the early 20th century, scientists who dared to research electroculture were quickly silenced. Their funding was completely cut off by universities sponsored by chemical companies. Books and research papers detailing the massive yields achieved with copper antennas were removed from agricultural libraries. Let me give you a very clear example of this historical sabotage. There was a famous French researcher named Justin Christoflo. In the 1920s, he grew towering crops of wheat and massive cabbages using nothing but atmospheric electricity. His fields were so successful that farmers from all over Europe traveled to see his gigantic vegetables. But the chemical cartels targeted him relentlessly. They spread vicious rumors that his crops were poisonous or that he was lying about his results. They pressured the government to confiscate his equipment and ban his public demonstrations. This was a deliberate, calculated effort to wipe out a self-sufficient farming method. The smear campaigns worked perfectly. Within a few decades, the entire world forgot about the incredible power of atmospheric gardening. The chemical giants won the war, and the magical 1800s trick was officially labeled as a forbidden pseudoscience. So, how exactly does this forgotten 1800s technique physically beat your modern compost pile? Let us look at the real, undeniable results. When you use regular compost, you are essentially just throwing slow-acting food at your plants. The plant still has to do all the hard work of digesting and pulling those nutrients up through its stem. It is a slow, exhausting process that depends heavily on perfect weather and perfect watering. But when you introduce the copper antenna trick, everything changes at a cellular level. The microcurrents of electricity literally alter the surface tension of the water in the soil. This makes the water thinner and much easier for the plant roots to absorb. It is like replacing a tiny drinking straw with a massive fire hose. Your plants do not have to struggle to drink anymore. Furthermore, the electrical charge forces the plant to pull more carbon dioxide out of the air. This accelerates photosynthesis to extreme levels. If you do a side-by-side comparison, the results will shock you. A tomato plant grown only with expensive compost might give you 20 nice tomatoes. But a tomato plant grown with a simple copper antenna will give you 40 or 50 massive, perfectly ripe tomatoes. The electrically stimulated plant will also mature weeks faster. It simply outpaces the compost-fed plant in every single category, from size to flavor to overall disease resistance. The most exciting part is that you can set up this forbidden system in your own backyard today for almost zero cost. You absolutely do not need to buy expensive, heavily marketed garden gadgets. All you need is a trip to the local hardware store and a few spare minutes. The basic formula has not changed since the 1800s. You need a sturdy wooden stake, like a thick branch or a simple dowel. Then, you need some pure copper wire. You can even strip the plastic coating off some old electrical wire you have lying around the house. Tightly wrap the copper wire around the wooden stake in a spiral pattern. Make sure the wire goes all the way from the top to the very bottom. Leave a few inches of extra wire pointing straight up into the air at the top of the stake. This acts as your main energy receiver. Now simply drive the bottom of the stake deep into the soil next to a struggling plant. Make sure the copper wire makes solid contact with the moist earth. That is it. You have just built a powerful atmospheric receiver. As the wind blows and the sun shines, that little piece of wire will quietly gather energy and pump it directly into your garden bed. Within just a few weeks, you will notice that the plant next to your antenna is significantly greener, taller, and much stronger than its neighbors. It is the easiest gardening hack in the world. Now, here's the ultimate secret that brings this all together, and it involves the hidden connection to soil microbes. This 1800s trick does not just replace compost, it actually supercharges whatever small amount of organic matter you already have. Your soil is completely alive. It is packed with billions of microscopic bacteria and fungi that break down minerals and feed your plants. These tiny workers are the real heroes of any garden. But normally, they work at a slow, predictable pace. When you introduce the copper wire antenna, the electrical currents shoot through the soil and shock these microbes into massive action. It is like giving every single bug and bacteria in your dirt a massive shot of adrenaline. They start multiplying and breaking down organic material at lightning speed. This means if you do add a small handful of compost to your electrified soil, the microbes will process it 10 times faster than normal. The atmospheric energy creates a perfect, hyperactive environment where bad fungus and disease cannot survive. The good bacteria thrive, and the root systems explode with healthy white growth. You are essentially creating an unstoppable biological machine right beneath the surface. This is why the chemical companies were so terrified. This simple combination of copper and natural soil biology completely eliminates the need for expensive synthetic fertilizers forever. The most mind-blowing plot twist in all of this is that the truth could never stay hidden forever. Despite over a century of aggressive suppression, this forbidden 1800s trick is finally making a massive comeback. Backyard gardeners and independent farmers are rediscovering the incredible power of atmospheric energy. They are realizing that we have been sold a lie for over 100 years. You do not need thousands of pounds of rotting compost or expensive toxic chemicals to grow a thriving garden. By simply returning to the forgotten wisdom of copper antennas and natural magnetism, you can unlock explosive plant growth right in your own backyard. It is time to take back our gardens and break free from the chemical dependency that was forced upon us. To sum it all up, harnessing the free electrical energy of the earth completely outsmarts modern commercial farming. Thank you so much for watching and uncovering this hidden history with me today. If you found this information valuable, please hit that subscribe button, leave a big like, and share this video with a fellow gardener. Now, I have a massive question for you. Are you going to try building your own copper wire antenna this season, or are you still sticking with traditional compost? Drop your answer in the comments below and let us start a revolution.